I got to tell you, man, I tune into the pregame show, the halftime show, and the postgame show. And I've never seen more miserable people in my life than that show. When you got Farzetta on there and you got Missinelli and you got all them guys. We're 8-1. What's wrong? We're 8-1. Only in Philly. Like this guy here. Look, say this guy Angelo right here, right? Angelo's like, why am I doing this? We suck. We're 8-1. It's the only place I've ever seen where no one's happy. And I think this is why I really like it. It's because I'm never happy. I think it's just the way of the world here. You see, when you're in New York and you're in Los Angeles, you're a snowflake. And 6-4 is funny and cool to you. 8-1 in Philly is miserable. Marc Farzetta joins us now. And
that's probably the most perfect intro or segment before me ever. That's great. That was great.
So when Angelo came on the other day, he goes, help me. Please help me. We're 8-1 and I don't believe in the team. Why am I miserable? And I go, oh, because you're from Philly. I go, there's no other way around that. You're never satisfied with this thing here. So again, I mean, Marc, I think the one thing that you do have compared to other markets around the country and the people that see this team and know this, you're in the process right now. It's a really great start. And you see things and you're comparing yourself to a year ago. You're not comparing yourself to the league. You're comparing yourselves to the 22 team. Is that fair? That's why you're doing this. It just doesn't look like that.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what everybody in Philadelphia is doing. And that's why I believe this is such a great fan base, is because they know it's not about beating the Buccaneers in week 2. It's not about beating the Vikings after that. It's not about being able to handle yourself against a team like the Miami Dolphins, for instance. It's about the bar that is a Super Bowl. That's what it's about. It's not about 8-1. 8-1's great, and we all feel great that they're 8-1, but that's not the measuring stick. The measuring stick is a Super Bowl appearance and a Super Bowl victory. That's the measuring stick. And even though the record is great, everyone in Philadelphia that's watching every single snap knows that this team is far from perfect. The only thing they do extremely close to perfect is find ways to win. And good teams, great teams find ways to win. We know the old adage. And then the bad teams always find a way to lose, i.e. the Dallas Cowboys when you're facing a team that is, for instance, a good football team, not the New York Giants. So for me, I look at this 8-1 record right now with the Eagles, and I say, this is great. They're in position to get that first round bye in the playoffs. We'll keep that going. Hopefully the Eagles will keep that going, And then after that, we'll be able to measure them against whether or not they're able to not only get to a Super Bowl, but win it.
Well, 9 months ago was Super Bowl 57. What have you done in that 9 months to close the gap on the Chiefs?
Yeah. I would love to say that you've improved your defensive line, and I think they have improved their defensive line. I think Jalen Carter has been an absolute force, but the Kansas City Chiefs are also no slouch when it comes to their defensive line, especially in being able to get after the quarterback. The thing that I find very interesting in terms of what's the most different thing about this team versus that team, this Eagles team and that Chiefs team, is the fact that Patrick Mahomes is running the football more than he has in his entire career. So even if the Eagles get pressure with that defensive line, we all know he's always been mobile, but he's never been this mobile in his career. Whether that's out of necessity, I don't know. Whether that's just him trying to improvise more and get guys open because corners can't cover for that long, that might be part of it. But the biggest difference for me for this team has to do with their linebacking core. As much as I know Eagles fans don't want to admit to themselves, looking back on the linebacking core last year, they were pretty good. They weren't great.
70 tackles between two guys.
That's pretty damn good. And they have, look, I think Zach Cunningham has played very well in his brief time with the Eagles, but it's been an up and down, ebb and flow type of process here. And then overall, the secondary, Darius Slay, he grades well, but overall, that secondary is the 4th worst secondary in the NFL in terms of passer rating allowed. That is something that just can't happen. You can't expect to win in the playoffs when you have no pass defense. And last year, you were one of the best pass defenses in the league. So that's a huge difference to me. And I know they got Kevin Byard, and hopefully not only they use the bye week to be able to become a more healthy team, but they use the bye week to make sure that he is getting more integrated into their coverage schemes. But to me, the biggest difference is that this team is not competing against the passing game like they were last year. Bradbury has been a shell of himself this season. There's no better example of that than how we played against the Commanders in both those games. So for me, I think the biggest difference has to go with their passing game, their passing defense, excuse me.
Wouldn't you agree that the Chiefs, as a 53-man roster, is better than they were in Super Bowl 57? Because their defense now is 5th in rush defense, and they're like in the tops when it comes to pass defense. Last year, they were 20th in the Super Bowl. But what people don't look at with those jaded numbers, they were trending up as they were going into that Super Bowl. So where they are right now, I look at it like this, Mark. I don't know if the Eagle roster is as good as last year's roster, but I look at what I'm seeing with Kansas City. Kansas City's 53-man roster, it looks more complete than it did a year ago to me. I mean, that quarterback proved one thing last year. He broke all kinds of records in the passing game. He didn't need Tyreek Hill. He doesn't have to have a number one wide receiver in that building to win. And he's got maybe the greatest play calling head coach in the game right now. I mean, that's why I ask you, have the Eagles closed the gap on that in the last 9 months?
I feel like on the offensive side of things, they have closed that gap. But on the defensive side of things, that's where they had the most ground to make up. And no, they have not made up that ground. And it's interesting. You highlight the defense, and rightfully so, especially when you talk about that defensive line, especially when you talk about that secondary and all the things that the Kansas City Chiefs have been able to do so far this season. But everybody else is concentrating on the fact that that Kansas City Chiefs offense does not look like it looked a year ago. So for me, I think that's what too many people focus on. They don't give enough credit to how good that defense has come along. I don't know if it was the fact that Chris Jones, missed a game or two at the start of the season. I think one game when it came to working out his contract dispute. And ever since then, he has been a bull in a china closet. So yes, I think offensively, the Eagles have done great. You have seen the chemistry there with A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts be even better than what it was a year ago. The run game has been a little stagnant right now for the Eagles, unfortunately. That may change with Cam Jurgens coming back after the bye week. But I think the biggest gap where it has gotten bigger, unfortunately, is the fact that the Eagles simply cannot defend like they defended last year. I know that the sack numbers are sexy. I know the sack numbers look great and all that, and they were looking pretty damn good last year too. But in terms of that defense that they have, that secondary that they have, it has left a lot to be desired. Look, a year ago, they made a trade before the season started, as we know, for Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, for C.D. Deuce, a slot corner to be their new safety. This time around, they felt it necessary a week before the trade deadline to trade for a two-time All-Pro. That's all you need to know. That's how much help they needed in the secondary. They activated the 21-day practice window for Justin Evans today. That's not huge news, but at least it'll be depth for their secondary. That, to me, is where, unfortunately, to answer your question, if you're an Eagles fan, no, unfortunately, they haven't closed the gap there. It's gotten bigger.
Mark, indulge me here on this, because this is why I think that secondary looks a little different than it did a year ago, even with the same scheme. Obviously, different twist here with Sean Desai, but last year, the volume of pressure, hits on the quarterback, pressuring the quarterback, not just sacks, was higher. And now what you have is most teams right now, do you know what the team is that leads the NFL in passing attempts versus another team? The Eagles are number one in the amount of passing attempts versus their defense compared to any team in the NFL. So teams are going into this going like this. Well, why would I have the least amount of resistance going against their number one ranked team that's against the run? I'm going to throw the ball, and that's why they're at the bottom, which means this: if you don't have higher volume of pressure on the quarterback, you have deeper evolving routes that are not going to give you the space that you had with all of the underneath of a year ago, because you were getting pressure on the quarterback. Now, the second half of the season, BG picked his count up. Hassan Reddick became a force. Now, does that become more of a factor? Was BG on a pitch count the first half of the season in this next 5 stretch? This is kind of what they saved him for. That could be something that you're looking at here. So to me, it's going to be more about the about the volume of pressure on the quarterback because Sam Howell sat back there. They're playing pitch and catch, Mark. They're just playing pitch and catch. And, they give up the most first downs of any team in the National Football League, which means this. Most teams are third and short against you. So that's why there's not that margin of error back there and why some of those guys are getting turned around. That was just an observation that I made on what the secondary and why it's looking, plus the injuries.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is interesting to look at it like that. And there was talk, and I know Seth Joyner pointed this out on our post-game show and talked a little bit about it on the pregame show as well. When it came to the RPO game offensively, maybe they're saving that more for the second half of the season. That'll be Brian Johnson's, in case of emergency, break the RPO glass and have Jalen Hurts do a little bit more of that in the second half of the year. He's averaging, I think, throws out of the RPO this year. There's about half as many. So that's been cut in half. And then you look on the other side of the football. To your point, Brandon Graham said after their game against the Cowboys, where he came up with some clutch sacks there, obviously, a sack and a half. Only had, I think, a half a sack sales going into that game, came out with a sack and a half, then 2 on the season. Pretty remarkable. And he said after the game, you know what? Maybe this is what they're saving me for. Said just what you said. Maybe this is what, hey, you know what? Maybe you dust me off a little bit, throw me out there, and I can bring down a quarterback or two. Look at that. So that could certainly be a part of it. The other thing is when it comes to Hassan Reddick, there was a big debate in the first, I think it was 4 weeks of the season. It was like, how much is how much is the cast on his hand bothering Hassan Reddick? Is it really holding him back? Well, ever since he's gotten it off there, he's been like the sack leader in the NFL.
He's a weapon.
He's amazing. He is incredible. And to think that you could have Josh Sweat, you could have Hassan Reddick, and then you have a guy like Nolan Smith, who's still not on the radar just yet, but a guy that is going to be learning. Yeah, a guy, Jordan Davis on the defensive line on the interior, absolutely. But have guys like this getting after the quarterback that are 100% in the swing of things. I think in the second half of the year, this Philadelphia Eagles defensive line is going to do what they've been doing for most of the season, but they're going to be doing it at a much higher volume, to use your word, in the second half of the year that'll make offenses go, oh yeah, this is the team. This is the team that had 70 sacks last season, and now they got a weapon like Jalen Carter providing that push up the middle.
See, I don't think they're going to get any better, Mark, in the secondary. What I do think,
in the secondary, yeah, I agree with you. Yeah.
What I do think, though, is bringing more pressure and getting more pressure on the quarterback with your front seven. That's how you help them and make those numbers come down. Is not giving that quarterback 3 seconds to sit around in the pocket and pick a spot and moving guys off his spot. I want to get to this one here. I'll tell you what, I got to vote for like the NFL honors when it comes to Coach of the Year, and I won't lie, man. I didn't think I'd ever do this, but I got Shane Steichen as one of the top 10 guys.
Wow,
he's 5-5, dude, with Gardner Minshew. I mean, he's 5-5, and I'm like, I can't. And all that shit that went on with Jonathan Taylor at the beginning of the season and all this, he's done quite a job with that football team. Now I'll ask you this: will coaching be a factor come Monday night? Because in Super Bowl 57, it was, and by the way, it's not shade on what Philly has, but these are first-year coordinators against Steve Spagnuolo and Andy Reid. I mean, I'm not going to get – now, Tone brought up something earlier. I think the Bieniemy loss, you can absolutely say there's something there to that because look at Sam Howell. He's number 2 in passing yardage with the Commanders. You can't think that that's not part of him in what he's doing. So are you concerned about that a little bit? Because look, you and I both, and I heard you complaining about it. 3rd and 3, you're throwing the ball down the field. Shit, you gave the Cowboys an opportunity. I mean, Jalen did everything right. The coach tried to give the game away at the end of the ball game. Are you concerned kind of about that a little bit on Monday night?
All right. First, I prefer I was bitching about it as opposed to complaining. Okay. I was more so bitching about it because that was the.
Oh, wait, is there a difference in Philly? I have to get this. Wait a minute, Mark. Is there a difference between bitching and complaining?
Well, just like, my 4-year-old complains. I bitch. You know what I'm saying? So, you know what I'm saying? So anyway, I'm watching this and oh man, you put the quarterback in the machine. I had a week and a half to get over this. Dumbest play call this season to throw the. Here's why it pissed me off so much. Okay, so we all know about the brotherly shove. We all know about the tush push. A week prior to the Cowboys game. So Nick Sirianni had one of the best quotes he's ever had. And he was asked by Mike Sealski, he was asked the question, what does it do for your mentality as a head coach and partially as a play caller to know that you have that 1 yard in your back pocket whenever you need it because of the brotherly shove, because of the touch push. And you know what he said? We only have 1st and 9. We never have first and 10. And then you go into that play.
I hadn't heard that.
You go into that play to ice the game, and you're like, oh, okay, well, you're gonna run it here because you're gonna set up. Obviously, okay, it's 3rd and 3. You're gonna set up. You'll get 2 yards here with DeAndre Swift. You'll get 2 yards here with even Rashad Penny had 1 good carry in that game at least. You're gonna get to that 4th and 1, 1st down, game over. And instead, they throw the ball to 33 to AJ Brown. Stupid. I'm sorry, you actually asked a question, but you put the quarter in the angry machine. What the hell was it? Oh, the play calling, coaching.
Yes. I know what cappuccino and everything. I know what all that stuff does to you, and I know that, right? Espresso. I understand it because it throws me off a little bit too. You know, I have to take a break every now and then. You know what I'm saying? And then I have to come back, put my brain cells together. So please continue.
Yes, good. Anyway, so you got the coaching advantage here. It definitely goes in favor of the Chiefs. I hate to say that, but how do you argue against it? Look, Nick Sirianni's perfect after the bye. That's great. But you know what? Andy Reid's been around, 25 years? He's now 4th on the all-time win list, and he's got 21 wins.
4 counting playoffs after a bye.
Good God, man. That is pretty of all the things we could bitch about Andy Reid here in Philadelphia, of all the things, the one thing in particular that you just got to give him his props right there was always after the bye week. But here's the deal. The biggest question before the season, for me at least, was can Brian Johnson call plays and run an efficient offense and be a play caller at the NFL level, something he's never done, and can Sean Desai be a good defensive coordinator? For me, Sean Desai, regardless of what the passing game is doing, the pass defense is doing right now, I think he's done a very good job as a defensive coordinator.
I think he's done a really good job.
Second half adjustments, the game I always go to that is the biggest exclamation point on that fact is Cooper Kupp. 96 yards in the first half on 5 catches, and then 2 catches in the second half for 25 yards. That's an adjustment. And also shutting down Puka Nacua as well. So then you take it to the next side. You go to the other side. That question has been answered. Sean Desai's done a great job. Go on the offensive side. Brian Johnson has left a lot to be desired. There's been some flashes there. Fake bubble screens. A.J. Brown. Getting a guy like Olamide Zaccheaus involved in it all as well. That's been good. But few and far between. I liken it to watching young athletes. And you know this phrase, so watching young athletes and we go, oh, there's flashes. Oh, we see the flashes that are there. Brian Johnson has shown little blips. I wouldn't call them flashes just yet, but little blips of, oh, that was good. That was creative. That was different. I need to see more of that in the second half of the season. I laid out a couple of things going into the bye week that I needed to see when the Eagles came back. Health is the biggest thing that we could all ask for as far as what we want to see from the Eagles going forward. But other than that, it's Brian Johnson. I need to see Brian Johnson commit to a running game, trust in a running game, and overall be a much better play caller than what we saw in the first half of the season. So now Andy Reid is going to go against a guy like Sean Desai and really give him a test. And now you're going to have a guy like Steve Spagnuolo go against Brian Johnson, which is an ultimate test. And I don't know if I told you this before when I was on with you, but when people talked about Brian Johnson, oh, he'll be great. He'll be great. He's known Jalen Hurts since Jalen Hurts before. He burped Jalen Hurts. He babysat Jalen Hurts. He gave Jalen Hurts his juice boxes. You know what I mean? I don't care. I care about what kind of play caller he's going to be for Jalen Hurts as a quarterback. And so far, right now, it's left a lot to be desired. I have seen the talent prevail over bad coaching and play calling more so than anything. So talk about that gap again. I would love to see the Eagles be able to close that gap in terms of the experience you have on their side of the football field at Arrowhead and the Eagles side of the football field.
Now, I'm going to take something from last night, and I'm going to, believe this or not, defend Brian Johnson.
Go on.
Okay. Did you at the beginning of the year think Sean Payton and Russell Wilson was a train wreck?
Yeah, I did. I thought Sean Payton, I thought he was picking up a check, that last check.
But don't you agree now with a little bit of patience? I'm going to show you something here, Farzi. They've kept the passing numbers down, which means this. He's only on pace for around 3,400 yards. However, 34 touchdowns, 8 picks, 67.9 completion percentage, and 104. And what Sean Payton has done with him, he's given him plays that were less turnover risky, low turnover plays, shorter passes. That pass to Sutton last night was probably the pass of the year. And what he's done is he saved him. But it took him the entire first half of the season. And this is a Super Bowl winning coach with a Super Bowl winning quarterback. These are two Hall of Fame guys, and it took them 9 weeks to get on the same page. Have we been too critical of Brian Johnson and that evolution of him being a first-year play caller and expecting him? Sean Payton struggled with Russell Wilson. Okay? I mean, I don't know how people don't look at. I was like you. Russell Wilson trash. This guy's washed. He sucks. Sean Payton blows. This guy's no. What I watched last night was a skilled way of developing him, putting everybody on, and they're colliding right now. I don't know what the Broncos are going to do this year, Mark, but I do know this. They're better. He's better. The team looks better. I mean, don't we give Brian Johnson a little bit more autonomy? And I mean, if we were going to make a play call, would it have mattered if it was Sean Payton being the play caller or Frank Reich or Brian Johnson? This was going to be an evolution.
Mm-hmm. No, and I totally agree with that and that part of it, that you're not going to see somebody come in and all of a sudden be awesome. So I'm eagerly awaiting that. But if the question is right now, has he impressed you to the way that Sean Desai has impressed you? The answer is a resounding no.
Sean Payton hasn't impressed me except for the last 3 weeks.
But I think with Sean Payton, isn't there a little bit more of a trust factor there because he has been a winning coach. He has helped bring another quarterback along.
Because he was in his first year, but after Russell Wilson last year, look at Nathaniel Hackett last year. You think Zach Wilson has any chance of succeeding in New York with Nathaniel Hackett on what he did with Russell Wilson and now?
No.
And people are in New York going, I don't see any difference with Zach Wilson. Well, Nathaniel Hackett's your play caller. Look at the difference between Russell Wilson now with Peyton and look at this guy here. There's no development. So, again, look, I'm not an excuse maker either, too. The 3rd and 3 drives me crazy, too. There were some other situations in the running, personnel decisions, too.
Quarterback draws.
That's all in the evolution, Mark.
Yeah. And I agree.
Play caller.
I agree. Here's what I would liken it to a little bit more so, and we'll stay with Sean Payton here. Sean Payton's a guy that in 2000 got stripped of the play calling with the New York Giants when he was under Jim Fossil as the offensive coordinator. Jim Fossil takes it over. They go to a Super Bowl. All right.
True.
Now, look, was that a big learning moment for Sean Payton? Absolutely. Did he go on and become the offensive coordinator? Where was it, in Dallas?
Dallas.
Yes, he did. But for me, with Romo, right. Now, for me, that's, I think, a more fair comparison in terms of letting somebody grow. I'm not saying that Brian Johnson right now needs to be stripped of the play calling. But the fact remains, you have a guy in Sean Payton that you can trust because he does have a history of success in the NFL. With Brian Johnson, we have to be waiting for the learning curves. We talk about it a lot. John McMullen mentions this a lot when it comes to Birds 365 here on JAKIB Media, and I agree with it. It's a Jim Schwartz philosophy, and this one I happen to agree with. The startup costs. Get the mistakes out of the way now. He's still a young coordinator. I think he's got a future in the NFL. He hasn't been a train wreck. I'm not saying he's been a train wreck, but there have been certain plays throughout this year that you go, that ain't it. That ain't it.
I completely agree. All right, Mark, are you Super Bowl or bust?
Yes, I'm in Philadelphia. Absolutely. Is there a consolation? It's not like the NBA where they're going to have an in-season tournament and then I don't know. I'm trying to organize a parade around Camden if they have that, if they win that tournament.
So there's no Kansas City's the number 1 team in the league right now.
Yeah, they're the team to beat. Absolutely. In the NFL, there is no arguing that Kansas City is the team to beat.
See, this is what I tell people. Go like this, 8-1. I go, when you have the heavyweight championship belt around your waist and you are the heavyweight title winner and you've beaten that team 2 years in a row with 2 different styles, running the ball and making the critical plays at the end of games that won Super Bowls, and you've had 5 years of dominance, you got a mini dynasty going on. That team in Kansas City, Mark, that team in Kansas City is the reigning heavyweight champion. And until you beat them, that's a step. What does Monday's game mean to the Eagles if they beat them?
I think it's legitimacy. That's what it is. I mean, let's face the facts here. we've said this many times. I thought this was interesting going into the game. One of the storylines going into this game, I think, is that the Eagles at 8-1 have not gotten proper respect. The Kansas City Chiefs at 7-2 have not gotten proper respect. So as I was talking about earlier, people want to talk about the offense. The defense is on point. It is better than what the Eagles faced in the Super Bowl last year. So this game, a lot of what's riding on it is legitimacy for both sides. The Kansas City Chiefs have that with 2 Super Bowls, 2-time MVP. They're okay. The Eagles are fighting for that. Speaking from a city's perspective, Philadelphia beats Kansas City. That is the ultimate legitimacy. It makes that now what would be a 9-1 record be the most legitimate thing. It does not wipe away a Super Bowl. It does not wipe away what happened last year, even a little bit. But in terms of going forward, you beat the Chiefs, you can beat anybody. And my ask going into this bye week after the Eagles took care of business against the Cowboys, and everyone talked about this gauntlet of games. I don't know if you can still call it a gauntlet with the Bills looking terrible, but if you look at this gauntlet of games right now, and everyone's like, look at this gauntlet, look what they got in front of them and all that stuff. I asked the Eagles to be Walter White. That's what I asked. If you were a fan of Breaking Bad, if you were a fan of that show, I asked the Eagles to be the danger. I asked the Eagles to be the team that knocks. Be the team that everybody else, the Bills, the Chiefs, the 40 whiners, good God. Be the team that those teams are losing sleep over. Don't be the team that's like, oh, man, we're going into the gauntlet. I hope we win. That's not going to be the Eagles. I see the Eagles having a good, successful run here. I don't know if it starts with the Kansas City Chiefs. I like the Eagles in this game. I feel like they have the bigger chip on their shoulder. I think that they have an opportunity to beat the better team. I think the Chiefs are the better team going in this game, but as we both know, the better team doesn't always win.
Absolutely. Last year, I thought the best roster was the Eagles. Now, see, I think Marc's too smart for these next 2 questions. So I'm going to see, and I'm going to test him here. Do you think Jalen Hurts outplayed Patrick Mahomes in Super Bowl 57?
I don't know. I don't. He lost. He had a huge fumble. I love Jalen Hurts. I love Jalen Hurts.
Do you think Jalen outplayed Dak in the Cowboy game? Because I do.
Yeah, he absolutely did.
I don't think there's a question about it either, but yet people will do this. The national guys are going, I've never seen a guy get more love. Like kind of showing up and really going, wow, can you see Dak play? I'm like, this guy made critical mistakes with inches to go to win games. Hurts had a 135 QBR. And I'm going like, what are you talking about? He made the plays. It was a carbon copy of what Mahomes did in that Super Bowl in the 4th quarter on what Hurts did in that game against Dak. I don't know why people can't see that, Marc. It's not about the yards. It's about making the critical play.
See, here's the thing. The Cowboys, for me, a lot of people just want to prop them up because, look, from a media standpoint, they are a ratings and clicks bonanza. So even if they can't beat the good teams, people really, really want to see the Cowboys do well. So even if they can't beat the good teams, they'll beat a team like the Giants like crazy, and they'll go, oh, look how great the Cowboys are. They want them to be back in that conversation because clickety-click, click, clickety-click, turn it on, the whole thing.
Rutgers is better than the Giants.
Hey, just answer it. When Tommy DeVito started talking about chicken cutlets, how much did you want a chicken cutlet? My mouth was watering, man. Oh, my goodness. That
Giant thing, man, was just a total trend. Final question for you.
Yeah.
How much will Goddard's absence be a factor in this game against the Kansas City Chiefs on Monday?
It's huge. It's huge, and it's got nothing to do with the passing game. Look, he's a great tight end. I think he is a pro. I should say this.
I think he's a top guy.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a Pro Bowl caliber tight end without question. What he does not get enough credit for is his involvement in the run game. And the Eagles' run game, unfortunately, hasn't been able to get going anyway. But now it's going to take another hit. You would think, you lose another weapon in the passing game, that's going to help the running game. Not with Dallas Goedert. He's that good of a run blocker. And I always go back to, I think it was the 2nd game of the season in Atlanta after the Eagles won the Super Bowl. And during warm-ups, 3 different Eagles players suffered hamstring injuries. And I think one was Alshon Jeffrey, one was Deshaun Jackson, and the other was Dallas Goedert. And I remember talking to members of the offensive line after that game. And they all said that when Dallas Goedert went down, they just went to their run game, and they went to their playbook for the run game, and they just went like this. They went, oh, well, that's gone. And I had never heard anyone speak that bluntly about a number 1 tight end in a blocking scheme. And for me, I just thought that was bonkers. And that just goes to show you how valuable he is. in the run game. So if you're an Eagles fan looking at this game, watching this game on Monday night, and you're wondering, oh man, where's the run game going? Dallas Goedert is going to have a huge impact on the fact that they're not going to be running the ball as well as we know they can.
I want to sneak one more in on you.
Bring it.
So last year, you had 1,300 yards from Miles Sanders. You had about 750 yards with Jalen. So you got 2,000 rushing yards with two men. And what was it, 13 and 11? You had 24 touchdowns between two guys. Is that where the run game has gone? Where you're looking at two men. Look at that, Mark. $2,000 between two men. Okay? And 25 touchdowns almost. You're not going to get close to that. So the Eagles, this is where that run game, where people are going like this. Personally, I don't think you have the talent in the backfield that you had. And because you get this, the dominance back there was Hurts. I didn't fear Sanders. Sanders was like the second guy. Hurts on 3rd and long. Mark, when he was in the perimeter, I can't tell you how many times I'm watching the game going, it's 3rd and 11. He's going to get this. And he's going to break a defense's back when he does that. Those 75 yards were by far more effective than anything he did because that team a year ago was constantly in 3rd and 1. They were winning 1st and 2nd down all the time. And when they were late on 3rd down, that guy got him out of trouble with his legs all the time. $2,000 is gone almost. Okay. Now you had 2 games where Swift it's kind of fool's gold numbers here a little bit with the rushing yards. But man, that number's got to improve in the second half for them. Hurts' health has got to be better, and it's got to help him in the run game. Do you agree?
Absolutely. I was someone that went into the season wanting Hurts not to run as much, but still wanting to do. But still, the Eagles, they went into this offseason and they said we're going to embrace the uniqueness of Jalen Hurts' game. They came out of the offseason, I should say, and say we're going to embrace the uniqueness of Jalen Hurts' game. And good, that's fine. Do that. But let's be smart about it. Like, for instance, if there's a 2nd and 1 situation, maybe hand the ball to the running back as opposed to let my quarterback, try to dive headfirst over the line or try to scramble on the outside. Let me just make sure he's 1,000% out of harm's way, hand it to a running back, try to get some more yards that way. I want the Eagles to trust their running backs. I don't think it's just a matter of Cam Jurgens all of a sudden not being in the starting lineup anymore that has hurt the run game. You mean to tell me that Sua Opeta is going to come off the bench and he's going to be your right guard, and he's not going to be a better run blocker than he is going to be a pass blocker? That's ludicrous. And then you look at it from the other side of things here. You see another guy like Tyler Steen come in there. You mean to tell me he's not going to be a better run blocker than a pass blocker? This is all about play calling and game plan. It's not just Brian Johnson. A lot of this is on Nick Sirianni as well. They have the talent in the backfield with DeAndre Swift. I don't think Kenny Gainwell is just god-awful. I think he's a good, not great, but good running back. And Rashad Penny, for a guy I thought was 100% shot, the one run he had, he looked like he was twice as fast to the hole as he was 4 weeks prior in his only other reps of this season. So let's exploit it a little bit. Get Boston Scott. Let's see that flourish a little bit more, especially if you do end up getting Cam Jurgens back by Monday night, because I think it's something that the Eagles have just, for whatever reason, not tapped into that strength. In the early goings of the season, it was the ultimate parachute for the Eagles. Things aren't working in the pass game, shift into the run game and be a force. It's the same reason that tush-push brotherly shove is so damn good, that has a damn near percentage close to a point after touchdown. Use it, abuse it, and do it when it's not just the quarterback jumping over the line of scrimmage.
I close out with this. Tyler, it's a Philly show the way everyone talks over it. No, this is an Italian show. You miss it. It's not who has the facts at an Italian dinner table like we are here. It's who hollers the loudest.
Yeah.
Having the facts has nothing to do with it. Who drinks the most espresso and who hollers the most. That's who wins these arguments.
Well, we're not yelling. We're just passionate. We're not yelling.
Drop one of my good friends, Oy vey. Come on, Tyler. Mark, thank you so much, my friend. Great stuff. And by the way, make sure you catch them for the pregame, the halftime, and the postgame on Sundays, each and every single time. This one will be on Monday, obviously, because the Eagles and Chiefs on Monday night. Thank you so much, Marc.
Always a pleasure, Sills. Thanks, brother.
You bet, man. That was fun. Love you guys, man. You guys were just absolutely sensational today. Very cool. Thank you again for everything that you guys do. Do me a favor. Please hit the like button. Xander, Big Joe, we thank you. Absolutely awesome. Tone, you kill it, man. Holy cow. Tone's in a guinea tea right now. This guy, Tone, you're now officially Tone DeCenzio. You're Tone DeCenzio now. Hey, thank you guys so much. 2 to 6 tomorrow. We'll see you on the flip side.
Football and Hooters, the perfect pair.